Alright, so I'm going to be swapping swing arms today on my 92 GSXR 600. I'm going to be swapping the swing arm for a 95 GSXR 750 box swing arm. Go ahead and show you them. This is my old swing arm. It's just an old banana swing arm. And then this is the new 95 swing arm. People swap them because the 95 is lighter and it's stronger from the bracing. So I decided I'd go ahead and swap it because I'm also swapping shocks for a 07 GSXR 1000 shock because it's a direct swap. As you can see, I already got everything taken apart. Everything when you're taking apart is pretty self-explanatory except for this little lock nut right here. It goes in the frame over here, and it sits on the shaft that the swing arm sits on, and it locks it in there. It's like a centric ring, and in order to take it off you have to get a 30mm socket and you cut 4 notches in it, and that way it locks in there like that, and then you can loosen it out. I went ahead and just bought the socket and did it because the socket's like $6. If you buy the tool online it's like $85. And then once you get through that, there's this other lock nut. It sits inside the frame right there, and the swing arm shaft actually sits inside of this, but once you take that first big lock nut off, you can just hit the shaft out from the other side. It will come right out, and then you just have to take this out so that the swing arm comes out. In order to take this out, I just grab this little piece of metal and it slips in there like that, and then I just loosened it. That way you don't have to cut up another socket doing it. And then from there is just taking the shock out, and then everything dropped out. Over here with the swing arms, really the biggest difference in them is the inner diameter of this shaft. This one, the inner diameter, you can tell the inner diameter is way smaller on the original one than this one. But in order to fix that, these are needle bearings inside of here, and the inside bearing race for this needle bearing comes right out and it slides inside this one. So I'll go ahead and show you that. Alright, on the outside is a 95 needle bearing race, the inside race, and then on the inside is a 600 needle bearing race. As you can see, it just slides right in. I put some Loctite around it and slid it in there, and I'll let it set up. That way it doesn't move in there, but if I ever gotta take it out, I can still pound it out. But it should keep it from spinning. And then on top of that, alright, this is the pivot shaft. I just had a piece of scrap metal that happened to work perfectly. There's a shaft that goes in between here, and it keeps the bearings from coming in, or the races from coming in. And if you don't have this pivot shaft, there's a possibility that the races are gonna come in there. There's already a pivot shaft in here, but it's too big for the new races. And the reason you Loctite the smaller races inside the big races is that the smaller races can't fall into the inside of there. But I mean, there's still a possibility it can happen. So I'm gonna go ahead and stick that in there. And can't really see down in there, but there is a shaft in there, and then this will slide right down in there like that. I'm gonna go ahead and let these this Loctite set up. Probably let it set up for like, I don't know, I guess the rest of the day, and then I'll come back and go ahead and install it and just figure out how the shock link goes together. Alright, so what I was going to show is I made a little sleeve that went inside of here. It fit perfectly in there. But I went ahead and put the swing arm apart, and the sleeve wasn't quite long enough, so it wasn't pushing on the inside of both of those races, the inside races, which means that one of these races could fall inside the swing arm. It's a slim possibility that would happen, but it's still a possibility. I didn't really like the chances of that happening. So I went ahead and ordered a newer outer bearing, and then that way I can press one of these bearings out, and I can put the inside sleeve that's off the old swing arm on this, and then I can press a new bearing in, and then that will mean that this will press on the inside of both bearings, so there's no possible way that the bearings could actually be, or the race could fall out, because this will be pushing on it. So I guess if you're going to do this swap, then you might as well just go ahead and order one of the bearings, so that you can go ahead and put your old race off your original swing arm, or old sleeve off your original swing arm into this swing arm. That way you don't run the chance of it possibly causing one of these races to fall inside of there. Alright, I got this shaft, and it fits inside that one little race, so that I can, or not race, spacer. It fits inside the spacer, so I can hammer on the spacer and we'll push the other bearing out. Then I'll go ahead and put that sleeve in there, and then once I get that sleeve in there, then I'll push the new bearing in. And for anybody wanting the bearing, I guess one of those is a part number. So there's that. I'll go ahead and push that out and pop everything back together. Alright, I got the bearing pressed out. I got it sitting over there, and I actually pressed it out, and using that little shaft that I was using, the bearing's actually perfectly fine. So I could have even reused it if I felt like it, but it's good to just go ahead and replace it if you're banging on it with something. But this is the difference of the little spacers in there. You can tell that they're the same height, but this one is just way bigger than that one. So this was the one that was in there, swapping it for this one, and this is the little race that I pressed one race into the other. And you can see on this, it's the same diameter as a bigger race, so the small one could slide right down into there. But this one is the same diameter as the inner race, so the inner race can't slide down in there. And it's actually wide enough that the outer race can't slide in there either. So now I don't have to worry about either of them sliding out, and that will keep the races from falling into the inside of the swing arm. So I'll go ahead and push those together and we'll be done. Alright, now I'm taking this linkage out, changing it out for this linkage. It's different because this one just has a bolt passing through. The other one has a rod that's welded to it. So I'm going to swap these out, and then that will allow this swing arm to work. Alright, I got the linkage on, so now I just got to put on the swing arm. Alright, so I got pretty busy, so this next part of the video I'm filming a couple weeks later. Show you the bike, it's all put together. I've been riding it. I've put 400 miles on since I did the swap, and everything's holding up good. I'm kind of doing the video a little later because I had to get the wheels powder coated, and then I found out my old tires were bad, so I had to buy new tires and stuff, get all that set up. But for the swing arm, I didn't really show the assembly. It's not that hard, but what you want to make sure is, I don't know if I can get it, but there's a bolt right there for one of the dog bones. You want to make sure those dog bones are facing up when you stick the swing arm on, otherwise you have to pull it back apart because you can't lift this high enough to flip the arms back up. So when you're sticking the swing arm in, you'll have to stick that little pivot, I don't know what you call it, but it's inside the bolt. You gotta stick that on, and you want those dog bones facing up. And I can show you the old dog bones so you know what they look like, but you just make sure that's facing up. Then you get the shock in there and you just bolt everything up. Everything went pretty good. One note is you will need the rear axle adjusters, because that's what actually tightens the chain. Alright, mailman drove by and it was pretty noisy. So anyways, yeah, you'll have to buy the rear axle adjusters. It's just like these little aluminum blocks. I was gonna make them, but I found the rear axling adjusters for like $10, so it's worth it just to buy them. The dog bones, you will have to buy the dog bones for this, and the little linkage for the shock. I don't know if they're the same, but I just plan on them not being the same, and go ahead and buy it. Really the only thing you'll save off the rear suspension is, I guess, your shock if you want to keep it, but pretty much everything else you got to replace. You can still use your same rear brake, and the wheel and everything fits up fine. So the brake lines just routed a little differently, but yeah, brake bolted up fine. So really you just need the swing arm, rear axle, axle adjusters, and the dog bones. And I'll go ahead and show you what the dog bones look like. Alright, this is what I'm talking about. This is the old dog bone. The new ones don't have this rod welded onto the center. They're just these flat pieces of metal. You could probably make some if you knew the measurements on the new ones. I don't know the measurements because I have it put together. But you'll also need this off of the brace swing arm. That just connects the dog bones with the shock. But that's pretty much it for the swap. I'll go ahead get the weight of the brace swing arm versus the stock swing arm, put that up, and then also total up the price of everything. Alright, so I have the two swing arms. This is a brace swing arm I didn't use because the person decided to grind off the entire front of it, and they grinded pretty deep, and the dude sold it to me on eBay as one in good condition, so he just refunded me. And then this is the old banana swing arm I had. This doesn't have bearings in it, so I just went ahead and left that on. But go ahead and just weigh them with a fish scale. Ten, 11 pounds, 4 ounces. £13 pounds, 1 ounce. That's what I kind of figured. People always act like the braced one's a lot lighter, but I mean, looking at them, you can tell that there's no way that it's going to be lighter, because it has a bracing on it, which adds weight. And then this little, I guess, shock support, that's a lot bigger than the banana swing arm. So this does have bearings in it, so that's going to cause it to weigh a little bit more than that one already, but I mean, I just don't think there's any way that that one's going to be lighter. Alright, so I decided to just go ahead and weigh the center shaft and the inner bearing races just to see how much they added up to, and they add up to 1 pound and 8 ounces, which is about 1.5 pounds. So they're pretty heavy, so I guess maybe the swing arms are about even on their weight. So if that's the case, then this swap's a little bit better, because the main reason for the swap is just to add the bracing onto it, which makes it, I guess, more stable, makes the suspension stiffer. But if they weigh the same, then there's not really a negative side to it other than cost. Alright, so added up the cost of the swap. Rear axle and adjusters was $14.40. The dog bones and the shock and the linkage, those were $84.55, which you can probably find them cheaper, but I had a weekend to get the swap done, so I just went ahead and bought whatever popped up first, which is 84 bucks. The swing arm was only $78, and then the swing arm bearing that I had to take out so that I could put the new shaft in the center, that was $34.82, and the total for the whole swap was $211.77. And if you don't have a, I think it was it's a 30mm socket to cut up, that will cost like $6. So swap would cost like 218 bucks. So it's not too bad for it. Alright, thanks for watching. If you have any questions on the swap, on how to do any certain part of it, just go ahead and leave a comment. I'll try to reply within a day or two. Swap came out good. I didn't really have any hiccups on it. I did have to order some more parts, but I guess if you just follow the parts list that I'll leave at the end of the video, then you should be fine. One thing you'll have to take into account is you may have to get a new chain. Mine didn't have a master link, so it was pretty tricky trying to use it again. I just went ahead and ordered another chain because I can use this one for now, but I don't really trust it that much. And swap, turns out that didn't really gain any weight or lose any weight on it, so weight's kind of out of the picture for it. It does add stability, like in the corners, makes the suspension a little stiffer, not compression wise, but makes it more stable. I've gone to some pretty tight turns, and I'd like to say that I've noticed that it's stiffer, but it could also be because I replaced some of the bearings in it. And the old swing arm, if I got into a really tight turn, I could feel a little wobble in the rear. I think the bearings were just kind of shot in it. So I can't really say much on that, but I mainly did it because I like the looks of it a lot more. And this swap's only $200, which is a lot, but it's not that bad for a swing arm swap. Anyways, thanks for watching. I'll have a video out a couple of weeks of doing a 07 GSXR 1000 shock in this. I didn't have time to do it the weekend that I did this swap, but go ahead and do the shock swap one day this week.